power of a
We're
smile.
sitting down.
The power of a gun can kill. The power of fire can burn. The power of the wind can chill. And the power of the mind can learn. But the power of a smile can heal a frozen heart. That is one of my favorite poems from a book called The Rose That Grew from Concrete. I came across this book when I bought a book by Tupac in a tiny little bookstore in Hay-on-Wye, Wales, otherwise known as the Town of Books. I started to read that book every night. That is what made me fall in love with poetry. Once I got back to Bali, I started to write one poem every day and send it to someone to get feedback. I did this for almost 20 days until we reached the topic of Quest in school. And I thought, what if I made a book of all my poems? So I went to ask my teachers, and they all loved the idea. So I went with it. I was writing poems everywhere I went. The biggest challenge I faced during Quest was when I was snowboarding in Japan over the Christmas break. I got back from an amazing night trip, and I noticed I'd lost my phone. All night, I was hoping it wouldn't snow. The next day, I went looking for it, but sadly, it had snowed overnight. So I was digging through the snow for hours until I accepted I had lost my phone, and I had lost so many of my poems. Since I had lost so many of my poems, I would not be able to hit my goal of 50 for my book. But once I got back to Bali, I settled on 35. This is the finished product. While making the book, I realized there were many different objectives, but the three main objectives were to raise awareness about paper waste, help local kids with their education, and inspire others to start writing poetry and experience the benefits. I started writing poetry for one reason, and that was to help with my mental health. I've always been very closed up when it comes to my feelings, but poetry was a great way for me to deal with them. Anytime I felt sad, I would sit down and let my emotions show themselves through my words. And I hope through writing this book, I can inspire others to do the same. In Bali's landfill, 13.95% is all paper waste. I wanted to focus on this problem for my quest, so I was thinking about how I could help. And then I thought about a presentation Grade 8 had at the start of the year by an organization called Paper Pods. What they do is they recycle paper while putting spinach seeds into it, so when you're done with the paper, you can plant it and it will grow into spinach. I thought it would be great for my book, so I asked Pack Booty for their contact and I emailed them for a meeting. We settled on a date when they were coming to Green School. After the meeting, I was faced with many different problems. I couldn't use paper pods for the whole paper, for the whole book, so I needed to find different paper to use. I didn't know where I was going to get it printed or how long it would take to finish writing and formatting the book. But after a week, I managed to solve all of these problems. I knew how and when everything was going to happen. Another one of my objectives was to help local kids with their education. So I started to research for a charity I could donate to. After a day of research, I found the Bali Children Foundation. They were perfect. Their mission is to improve the education standards of children living in Bali or nearby islands so they can achieve better incomes for themselves and their families. So once I started to think about different ways to raise money, I thought about a poetry reading, where people would come in and read some of my poems. So I talked to my mum about this idea, and she said it was great. So I started emailing people to organize the reading. I was thinking about where I should host it, and then I settled on the bridge. I thought it would create a great atmosphere for the people reading my poetry. My idea was that people would write their name down in a hat, and we'd pull it out at random, and they'd just read a poem from my book. After the poetry night, I counted up all the money I'd raised, and I ended up with a total of 17 million IDR. I felt great. I raised so much money and it was going towards helping Indonesian kids with their education. This quest is special to me because it links to something I love and want to share with the world. So everyone, when you get home, try to write a poem. Maybe it can help you release some emotions and experience the benefits. I would like to finish my quest speech with one of my favorite poems from my book, Time. Time, oh time, a force so divine. It is with us till the end of the line. Time is something that we all fear, especially when the end is near. But you can break free and live life to the highest degree. Time, oh time, it waits for none. It keeps on moving until it's done. It carries us through joy and pain and leaves us with memories to gain. I would like to thank Ibu Laura, Ibu Angie, Pak Budi, Michael, Teo, Abby, everyone that helped me with my poems, Paper Pods, Bali Children Foundation, my closest friends, my siblings, my dad, and finally my mum, for helping me throughout the whole way and dragging me into the bookstore that made me fall in love with poetry. Thank you.